So one of the problems I have with this movie is how it exploits gay relationships as a means to blow up on the internet. You know when you start a movie that you think is going to be amazing, and then the more you watch it, you realize it's a total piece of crap. Well, this was my experience watching Saltburn, which is actually quite a long movie. And at the beginning, you think it's great. It's, it has great pacing. It has a lot of intrigue. You want the main character to succeed. But as this movie comes along, you realize that you're just watching a pretentious piece of crap. Now, let me start by saying what I really liked about this movie. I thought that this movie had a very good group of actors. I thought that all of these actors, they look great together on screen. I also thought that the cinematography in this movie was absolutely beautiful. They shot this movie in like that square format. In my TV, it looked awful. Like it took me a while to get used to, but they did have very good shots. Especially there's one that they're like in some kind of lake and there's like an overhead angle. There's a lot of shots in this movie that they just look like postcards. So I think that this is a movie that looks very nice. They shot it on film and it does have that regal quality to it, which is a theme in the movie, right? Like that medieval royalty, right? Even the font is that like medieval font that they use. So I thought that from an art design perspective, I thought that the directing of this movie was very cohesive. But again, I think that the biggest issue with this movie is the issue of the gay baiting. Okay, when they were marketing this movie was supposed to be this shocking movie about this gay bromance, homoerotic relationship between the protagonist Oliver and Felix, which is like this popular rich kid in school that everybody wants to be friends with, and then the main character Oliver just wants to be friends with him. They never really established why Oliver wanted to be popular. Like he's introduced as being this very smart individual. We just know that when he gets to the school, he doesn't seem to have a lot of friends. In fact, he only seems to be able to be best friends with one of the weirdos of the school that nobody likes, and it's super weird and violent. And then Oliver, we see that he starts to follow Felix around, and he tries to kind of get in his path enough so that Felix will notice him and hopefully get him to become part of his life. Something I like is that is, to me, that's a very relatable thing. That's a very relatable human quality to want to fit in and to want to be invited to specific events. It's like FOMO, right? Like fear of missing out. And I thought that was like a really good, relatable point. He does anything in his power to get in Felix's life, and eventually he succeeds and he meets his family. And his family, to me, was very interesting because I have been around of a lot of really rich people in the US. And to be honest, I've noticed that rich people tend to actually be extremely nice for the most part. They are very nice when they're in an intimate scenario, as long as they don't feel like people are trying to get anything from them. So to see this English family be kind of like an exaggeration of this hospitality, but it also show some signs of trauma in all parties. And to me, that was saying oh, if you are rich in this society, that's automatically going to come with trauma in your past. In the real world, I'm sure there's regular rich people in England. I thought it was an interesting choice to have both parents to be kind of really damaged individuals. So at first, that did not bother me in the movie because it was interesting to see how they were doing charitable work, but they would get kind of tired of individuals and kind of dispose of them. This was very interesting because he gave Oliver kind of like a clock, right? He knew that his time at Saltburn was timed and he had to gain the family one by one. So that to me was super interesting, and I loved how he's introducing the movie as being very perceptive, right? He notices things that other people don't notice. I think a lot of very smart individuals have that quality, and a lot of the reasons why they don't fit in society is because they're so perceptive and they're always overthinking how other people perceive them. So I thought that was a brilliant thing to have Oliver be this person who's hyper aware of everybody and what makes everybody tick and what everybody likes. Oliver knew that the mom kind of gets bored of her guests, and she invites them over. She makes them feel very special. She makes them feel welcome. She makes them feel like friends. But eventually she kind of just discards them, and that gave Oliver a very good motivation to kind of gain everyone's affection and love really, really fast. And so the movie became interesting because then it became about Oliver gaining every individual once and playing a different character with each person. So with the dad, he read this book of art, ceramics that the dad was into. With the mom, he realized that the mom had these crazy viewpoints that nobody supported, or nobody saw things from her crazy perspective. So he started to agree with a lot of the things that the mom thought about, her friends and stuff like that. And he would also say things that the mom would agree with, and that's how he gained over the mom, right? Which is played by Rosamund Pike, which she did a great job. So at that point, to me, it felt like a movie about this kid that did not fit in, finding a person that he admired, that he wanted to be with, and wanting to be a part of his life. Which to me, it sounds very relatable relatable. It's a very, very real story. You know, it's like you find someone you admire, you want to become like them, you want to be in their life, and you want to be around the people that they love and their family and stuff like that. So that to me felt like a very real story up until that point, and I was very invested. My issue with this movie comes in the third act, where the movie just took, I think, like a total 360. It's a very last minute change, and it becomes a movie about a psychopath manipulator, master manipulator, who has been sowing seeds from the beginning, and he has had a hand in every single move to cause the death of literally everybody in the family, but also become the owner of this house, which is the title of the movie. It's called Saltburn, after the house that they're staying over. And the movie became all of a sudden all about gaining property and gaining wealth, I guess. I mean, he only inherits the state. So that was something that also confused me, because at the end of the movie, this guy, it just becomes owner of a state. And that to him is the ultimate victory of everything he ever wanted. Now, there's different reasons why I hated this. First of all, is that if this guy, Oliver, he's so smart, he's like the first of the class. He's the first in the class, he's like the #1 student in the school. So you're gonna tell me that this guy, ultimate ambition is to own a castle in England. First of all, you can buy an empty castle in England. You can absolutely do that. You can become a very successful individual in your industry. You can become rich, you can buy a castle. So this student who's supposed to be like the best in his class, instead of wanting to like pursue like a successful career, become rich, he just wants to like do a bunch of manipulations to like get rights to a castle. So that to me was not, it didn't feel like a real motivation. It didn't feel something that he would actually want, especially because it would take so much destruction of this family and so much manipulation. Now, the other thing that bothered me is that the movie makes it extremely clear, like it goes above and beyond to make clear that this guy is not gay, okay? They did not want to leave that ambiguous. They did not want to leave that question to the audience. They straight up tell you like he was not in love with Felix, he was in love with the idea of Felix. So this movie that was advertised and exploited by Amazon on social media as being this like gay romance, they make a point, like they go out of their way to clarify that this character was straight all along, and he's just this psycho who is a master manipulator, and he was just in love with the idea of this guy. Now, that to me was absolute queer baiting by this movie. They knew what they were doing. The directing choices in this movie couldn't be more clear for both Felix's characters and Oliver's characters. They're playing these characters like they're attracted to each other. Felix gets bothered where there's a rumor that Oliver was with his sister. So the way that these actors were playing this character was absolutely in a gay way. But then at the end of the movie, you know, even Jacob Elordi at the end, it's like hooking up with girls. And all of this attraction, homoeroticism that's going on, they don't really do anything with it. You know, they kind of just leave it alone. With everything that happens in the movie, the fact that this guy, Oliver, he's like crying so much all over his grave, it doesn't make any sense because we find out that Oliver planned Felix to die. So why was he crying in his grave and having sex with his grave if all this time he wasn't actually in love with Felix? So that didn't make any sense whatsoever. And he was like humping his grave, yet he says that he's like not in love with Felix. He was just in love with the idea of Felix. So that to me didn't make any sense. It just felt like the movie wanted to like clarify, leave any like gay out of the movie. And to me that felt like a betrayal of the marketing and everything that had been done to kind of sell the movie as that thing. Also, the movie is kind of advertising itself as a very crazy, shocking film that like a lot of people like will walk like out of the theater from, that like a lot of people can't take how much like craziness is in this movie. There's not that much shock. I mean, I would say the worst scene in terms of shock is the vampire scene, because the bathtub scene, that was hyped up so much. Even Amazon was making like jokes on Twitter about the bathtub scene, and the bathtub scene wasn't even that crazy. It was just kind of gross because this guy's like licking the freaking sink, and that was disgusting. But I would say that probably the craziest scene was the vampire scene. That was just like gross and like weird, and like I don't think anybody is going to enjoy that. Now, when I watched this movie, one of the comments I made to my friends was, it's like, I feel like this movie, like women would enjoy it, and they would like kind of get aroused out of these two characters. And to no surprise, I found out that the director is actually a woman, and I have no problem with that. I have no problem of a woman directing a film with homoerotic elements. My issue is the way that this movie was marketed. It just made it seem like it was kind of like a gay romance. And again, it just felt like queer baiting, you know, again, we're like packaging this film with a bunch of like gay elements, but not making it actually a gay story. That makes this movie like homophobic. I would say that this movie has homophobic tendencies because it doesn't have the courage to actually tell a homosexual story, and instead uses it to be more marketable. Also, another scene that made rounds on the internet, the naked dancing, where this guy's just like dancing around the house with his dick around, just wobbling everywhere. I thought that was such a gimmick, and it was just something to get people talking about the movie. and it just felt like forced. Like that scene did not need to be in the movie, and it was just something to make it more marketable on like Twitter and stuff like that. That's one of the scenes that's making this movie like blow up online, and I'm like, yeah, but the movie itself does not have any substance. Just because there's these shocking scenes like spread throughout the film that were very intentionally put there to get the audience to just talk about this movie rather than talk about the movie because it's good. Now, I wanted to talk about the two main characters. So Barry Keoghan, I thought was very good in this, but I thought that the way his character was written, again, didn't make any sense. He's this like brilliant student, and at first, like in the first part of the movie, his character does make sense because he's so brilliant that he's able to study people and kind of like notice things that other people don't. But then he turns into this like sex animal that like everybody is out of nowhere like attracted to him. He's even super muscular in this movie, and to me, I was so confused because if he's this super buff, muscular guy, why wouldn't he be one of the most popular kids in his school? Why wouldn't all the girls just be after him, wanting to date this guy? Because he gets to this house and he just has everybody like on their feet, like just aroused by this guy. So to me, that didn't make absolutely any sense that in his past, he was this like low-key student with really good grades, but he was not popular in school. But then he gets to this house and he's this like sex monster, and like everyone's just attracted to him, and he's muscular, and he has a six-pack, and he's like having sex with the entire family, almost, you know, figuratively. So that to me was, you know, a kind of like a contradiction. And also like he's like crying at Felix's grave when nobody's there to watch. But then after we find out that he's just in love with the idea of Felix, of becoming Felix. So if Felix is out of the question, that should be a happy thing. It's like, what is happening? Like, who do I trust? It seems like the director did not understand his character, even her, and there were like conflicting ideas in the movie. And now when it comes to Felix, played by Jacob Elordi, who I thought did a really good job. He's really likable in this movie, and he does make you like want to be his friends. Like, you're watching this movie and you do want to be friends with this like cool rich guy. I thought that the biggest thing that didn't make sense about his character, he's established as this like God symbol in his school. Like, everybody wants to be friends with this guy. Everybody wants to be around with this guy. Only the hottest girls get to be around this guy. Only the most popular guys get to be invited to his parties. He's, you know, established as this like super untouchable character. But then we find out that he actually has like a heart of gold, and he's super, like, he's such a good person that he does good when nobody's looking, right? Like when he helps Oliver with the money, that he notices that Oliver is struggling with the money, and he goes up and pays for the tab, you know. That is such a good-hearted person thing to do. And if he's such a nice person, but he's also like this elitist person, like those things contradicted each other. So it's like, I feel like the director wanted to make him this unreachable character, but on the flip side of that, he made a guy that was so kind that he wouldn't be that type of person, that it's only with like the popular kids. And also like he was totally into Oliver. Like I feel like in their interactions, I feel like Jacob Elordi was totally told to play the character like he was attracted to Oliver, and he did, and he was good at it, but then the movie didn't go anywhere with that. I mean, the sexual tension was so great. Instead, the movie goes there, but with his annoying cousin, who's the worst character in this movie, and nobody likes that character. So with him, the movie does go there, but not with the main actor, because, you know, that's too gay. That's too gay in our movie. No, we can't have the two protagonists actually do gay stuff. It has to be with the side character who's annoying and nobody likes him. So that was another thing that was like really annoying, that it's like, oh, the actually gay character has to be the most annoying character in the whole movie, which is the cousin that has a problem with everybody, that doesn't get along with anybody, that it's like an outcast and a weirdo. That has to be the gay character. But we cannot make like Jacob Elordi actually gay, because that would be too like crazy, and then the girls would lose interest. So in conclusion, I thought that this movie started so good, and I was super excited to see where this story would end. But before we got our character explore the relationship that Oliver and Felix had and see where that would take, they had to turn Oliver into a psychopath, because the movie, we can't make a gay movie that is not doable in Hollywood. Apparently, we have to make it about a psycho. It felt like the marketing campaign was total queer baiting, and when I saw the movie, I was frankly like really mad and disgusted with what they did, you know, and that's how I feel. So let me know what you guys thought about this movie. I have some friends that really like this movie, but I have other friends that saw this movie and they thought it was horrible, and they agree with me that the ending is just too different and too much of a pivot of this movie, and it kind of disconnects this movie from real like human emotions and human realities. So that's it for this review. Let me know what you thought about it, and subscribe for more.